Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one, Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James, second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Good evening and welcome, Cavs fans. Sorry, it's like technical glitch. I haven't done the lead in a while. I was asleep at the wheel. Anyway, this is the Block the Shot to Stop. I am Kevin Lynch at Skylar Webker, here to talk about a rare Cleveland Cavaliers defeat tonight at the hands of the Indiana Pacers, 108-93 in what is simply put the Cavs' worst offensive game of the year. And we'll talk a little bit about how that happened and maybe some of the reasons we think why. But Skylar, as we often do, I'll just go to you first, like kind of general thoughts about the game.
Boy, that was a stinker.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell that these guys were probably tired from a thrilling OKC game to a second night of a back-to-back against the Raptors. It seemed like a game where they couldn't really catch their breath or were still trying to catch their breath. They were getting good looks. Kenny's offense was still, out there. Shots just weren't falling.
Yeah, and you're 100% right about that. And I have some speculation to why, but let's kind of break it down first. This is the first game this year that the Cavs did not score 100 points, so obviously not great. And how they got there was their worst shooting night of the year, just less than 40% from the floor, just less than 27% from three. Just all around, obviously not great. The first thing that sticks out to me when a team's having a rough shooting night, especially when a team like the Cavaliers are having a rough shooting night, I would have liked for them to be a little bit more forceful about going inside. Mobley and Allen only combined for 16 shots. I think regularly that should be at least over 20, maybe 25. And especially on a night where the threes aren't falling, and threes have fallen on pretty much every night this year, especially the last month or so. But tonight they weren't, and it was pretty evident from the start. Really, the Cavs got outplayed in 3 of the 4 quarters. The second quarter, they outscored the Pacers by 15, had a 13-point lead going into half, and you kind of thought the sluggish start was behind them. They righted the ship, and then third quarter was about probably the most outplayed of any quarter the Cavs this year.
Yeah, no doubt. 37 for the Pacers, 18 for the Cavs. Are we concerned about Donovan Mitchell having 2 stinker shooting nights kind of in a row for him?
I'm not. A guy with a track record like that, he's going to have to. He has such a long track record of being an incredible shot maker that honestly, he's going to have to go 7 to 10 games in a row like this before I really get concerned about him. Other guys with less of a track record, I might get more concerned about, but like Donovan, I think sometimes it happens. You're just off, right? And I think these two teams, even though his 2 last games since he didn't play against the Raptors, the Thunder, and then tonight, well, the Thunder's obviously a way superior to the Pacers. They are the kind of teams that can give Donovan trouble with like a lot of like big guards, wings, just throwing guys at him in waves. We saw him really struggle against, Jalen Williams and Lou Dort the other nights. And then tonight Pacers have some really good perimeter defenders, and Siakam, I think Andrew Nebhart was on Donovan Mitchell quite a bit, as was Mathurin, and they're just like really athletic guys that can give people problems. And so, but to answer your question, no, I mean, I think Donovan has given you enough reason to have faith in him that even if he has a handful of bad games in a row, it's just a stretch, not anything that's becoming permanent.
Yeah, I think maybe we're just skewed because we don't see bad games, especially bad games in a row. So I definitely understand that our stellar season so far is skewing everything, kind of making us look through everything in a microscope. But the other thing, I mean, we called it out. Tim and I called it out on our preview for this game was how the Cavs would match up with, I think the Pacers have two bigs in a sense with Siakam and Turner. They kind of have a mimicking roster as the Cavs, and we were interested to see how they played up against those guys. What did you see out of our bigs as they kind of went up against Turner and Siakam?
Yeah. So Siakam in particular, he's the exact type of player that can give the Cavs trouble, right? Like the Hawks have guys like him, DeAndre Hunter and everything. The couple games they lost to the Hawks, those wings that are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", who can play up as like a power forward, maybe even a small ball five, but then they're athletic enough to be a small forward. It's just the one area that outside of Dean Wade, the Cavs don't really have on the roster. And so I thought Siakam was a guy who would give him trouble. The other guy, even more than Turner, and Turner had a good game, don't get me wrong, but Jarris Walker gave him a lot of problems, and he's that same profile, 6'7", super athletic, can play on the perimeter or inside. He ended up with 8 points, 12 rebounds, and just seemed to be flying around all over the place, the 21 minutes he was in the game. So, yeah, I mean, I just think the Cavs are a bad matchup for a lot of teams. They're a bad matchup for their opponents more than the opponent's a bad matchup for them. But the one thing that they're probably most vulnerable to are guys like Siakam, or to a lesser extent like Jarris Walker, and Pacers kind of took advantage of that tonight.
Yeah, I would agree. And this is kind of why we speculate about making a move, because you're going to face a Pacers, a Hawks, New York, a Boston.
Yeah.
These teams that have a larger forward that can switch 3 to 5.
Right. And that's why I start out with the point of like Mobley and Allen only getting 16 shots combined. Because if you're not running your offense through those guys and they're not like dominating inside, then you can lose that. You're losing that advantage, and the other team will take advantage by playing smaller. And if Siakam is going to outplay Mobley or Allen, Pacers have a really good chance to win, right? And so, if you're going to play Mobley and Allen, even when the other team is matched up a little bit differently, a little bit smaller, more athletic, you got to take advantage of that. You got to pound it in. And I thought Evan, in particular, in the second half, I don't know exactly what the shot breakdown was in the second half, but it seemed like Mobley and Allen just kind of, weren't super active in the second half.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we've seen this team do throughout the entire season. They were always able to adjust and adapt, but they didn't seem to be able to do it today. Just like those two Hawk games, where they weren't able to kind of see what a defense would give them and make adjustments. Because it does seem like they stayed pretty guard heavy. They stayed pretty, everything like that.
Yeah. Well, and shout out to NBA.com. For obvious reasons, it is the best place to get, maybe not the best advanced analytics stats, but like things like shot charts. I was able to easily look up Mobley and now in the second half were 1 for 5. That's it. 5 field goal attempts, 1 make. And as good as the Cavs is and as good as their roster is, like, I don't know how many games there's a lot of nights they would not be able to withstand Mobley and Allen having that small of an impact in the second half.
No doubt, especially once you factor in that the 3-point ball was not falling at all tonight. Yeah. I mean, career low, or maybe season low, not career low, season low of less than 27%.
Yeah.
11 for 41. Ooh.
And they're up around 42% right now, like leading the league, 42%, leading the league. And they've been even better than that the last like 5 weeks or so since the beginning of December when the win streak started. And yeah, like you said tonight, really atypical performance. I thought, and I'll get your thoughts on this. It seemed like they kind of let the refs get to them. There were like overall, I'm not blaming the ref guys, and overall the fouls were about even, but like there was a series of events where there was like 3 or 4 would look to be pretty obvious fouls that the Pacers committed on Garland and Allen that weren't called. And it seemed like they just kind of like got on tilt about it a little bit. You saw Kenny get a technical tonight. It's like, yes, it kind of reminded me of the Hawks game when they kind of lost their cool a little bit.
Yeah, because Kenny got a technical. Woo. Karis LeVert also got one. It did seem like, there were some missed calls from the Pacers attacking the Cavs, and then like ticky-tack stuff on the other end of the floor. So it did seem, I don't want to blame the refs, or anything like that. It seemed like some stuff was getting skewed, and these players took it personally or couldn't get out of their heads about it.
Yeah.
So I agree. I had it in my notes, but I didn't want to be like, these refs are terrible, because
no,
it's not that. It just seems like when they're called and when they're not.
It seemed like there was a sequence in the game, right? Like about a 6 to 10 minute like stretch of like real game, like game time game, that they just seemed to miss several calls, and they got kind of, and like I said, overall the officiating was fine. It wasn't great, it wasn't terrible, but it just seemed like it all happened in one segment, and that's when they kind of lost their cool. And I was kind of thinking it was like right at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half, and that's when the Pacers started pulling away from them.
Yeah, because I remember there was like Jared Allen did this acrobatic layup, but was very clearly getting fouled during it, but that was missed. That's kind of seemed like the kickoff to the sequence of, all right, nothing's getting called on this end, and ticky-tack stuff is getting called on the other end. But this is the NBA. They still need to find ways to kind of move on past that, or achieve past that, or play beyond that. The refs don't lose you games; you lose you games.
For sure. I mean, refs lose you plays within a game. Like, you lose the game yourself. Like the ref lost the play because they didn't get 2 free throws because they missed a foul call, right? But like, there's usually roughly 100 possessions per game, right? You can't let those like 3 or 4 bad missed calls like affect the other 96.
Right.
So, but again, it's something I've only seen a couple of times this year, but for the most part, the Cavs have been phenomenal. Like, another thing, as if Allen and Mobley's impact in the second or lack of impact in the second half was enough. So I've started calling, and I like this term. Maybe I'll see what you think about it. So we always call the big four the core four, right? We know who they are. I've started calling 4 guys the next 4. The 4 that I think are, because you usually limit your playoff rotation to about 8 guys, and I think the next 4 are like LeVert, Dean Wade, Strus, and Okoro. Those 4 in the second half combined were 0 for 11. So and that's a big difference from say Wednesday night against the Thunder, for example. Donovan had one of his worst games of the year, but several other guys stepped up. Strus had his best game of the year. Allen was unstoppable and everything like that. Tonight was one of the very rare games. It's probably going to happen 2 or 3 times this year where like it just seemed like everyone was in a phone call at the same time.
It did seem like that. And I like when we were on with NBA Weekly with RealCavsFans.com, he said the starting lineup is the core 4 and then pick a guy.
Right.
Because it seems like it's always a rotation, whether it's Wade. I think Strus eventually makes his way back in there. We've seen LeVert in there. We've seen Okoro in there. And I think that kind of goes into that depth piece that we have. Like, thank God you have 4 guys that could easily slot in as your starter.
Yeah.
But I want to know what conversations Kenny's going to have with these guys and how they're going to respond. Because the way that Kenny's coaching these guys, I don't see them doing this 2 nights in a row.
I don't think so. You only saw that once all year, right? And that was the back-to-back they had against the Hawks, where we were like, they're like, oh, they're going to be so pissed that they lost this first game. They're going to come back and kill them in game 2. And then they lost game 2. It was like one of the few times that I was surprised in a negative way. I'm usually surprised in a very positive way about this Cavs team. One thing I did want to make note of, Tyrese Haliburton got hurt. I think it was at the beginning of the third quarter that he got hurt and everything. And I actually think in a matchup against the Cavs, it almost hurt them to not, or it hurt the Cavs for them to not have Haliburton, because then they just went all athletic, all defense lineup and shut them down to the point. Like, would the Cavs have like 40 points, less than 40 points in the second half. It's got to be their lowest half of the year, I would think. And
Exactly.
yeah, and so I almost think Halliburton would have been the guy that they hunted defensively, and they did some in the first half, right? And so I almost think him being out of the lineup, and then you saw them bring in like Obi Toppin, Ben Shepherd. I talked a little bit about Jarius Walker, those kind of guys. TJ McConnell, who is like he's their longer term TJ Maxx, like love him on your team, hate everyone else hates him kind of guy. So I actually thought that was something that you would think would work as a negative for the Pacers, but I actually think it kind of became a negative for the Cavs for them to not have Halliburton.
Yeah, it's also with like Halliburton's their guy. That's their number one. So to have him out of the lineup, even defensively, or their offensive scheming, the Pacers' offensive scheming changes quite a bit. And then, obviously the Cavs prepared as if Tyrese Halliburton's going to be there the whole game. So when it flips, and like you said, they went with an all big, all athletic lineup. I think that also threw them off. Is just their game planning completely changed, and they were unable to adjust on the fly.
Yeah, because the Pacers definitely won this game with defense. They didn't shoot the lights out by any means. They were 47% from the floor, but they were 31% from three. They actually only shot 11 for 18 from the free throw line. They definitely beat the Cavs defensively and turning defense into offense. Last I saw, this wasn't the final stat, but in the fourth quarter, they were up like 15-3 on points off turnovers. That's the game right there. It was a 12-point gap. And that's something that the Cavs are, usually being the opponent at. So all this to say, it's an off night. You don't worry about it. You would love for them to get the Pacers back in their building on Tuesday night and come back with a little bit more force. But like I was kind of worried. I was worried about the Raptors game, and honestly, they kind of sleptwalked through that one. They did get the win, and I was expecting them to right the ship by tonight. But these three games sandwiched between the two Thunder matchups, it is kind of a set up for kind of overlooking being sluggish, whether it's coming down from the adrenaline of that win Wednesday night or the looking forward to the rematch on Thursday.
Yeah, I do think they probably have their eyes set further and thought they could just fly over these games, and are learning. We still got to play the people ahead of us, because they're looking ahead past these Pacers games. It's if I remember right, it's the Thunder, it's the T-Wolves, and then who's after that?
I'm not sure. I wasn't looking that far out. You are right about Thunder and then T-Wolves, but while you're looking at Phoenix. Okay.
Phoenix was the other one.
Yeah. I was, and not to belabor the point at all, like about Mobley and Allen. And I don't even think it was. I do think it was on them. They weren't maybe as aggressive as they usually are and everything. I do think they weren't maybe getting set up as much as they usually are as well. But I was definitely bummed to see Jared Allen have a bad game, because he didn't even have a bad game, but he had a significantly less impact on the game than he has had about the last 10 games. He's been dominant, right? We've talked about him heavily on here about him going up against some of the best centers in the league and outplaying them. And then tonight, he still had 11 points, 9 rebounds, but on only 6 shots. He did get to the free throw line 6 times. And Kenny, this is what I didn't let. Kenny doesn't do this often, and Kenny has done a million more things right than wrong this year for sure. But he did cut Jared Allen's minutes tonight, and some of the other guys. Some of that was he pulled everybody with 3 minutes left, but Jared Allen was only at 25 minutes after he'd been regularly around the 33, 34 minute mark these last 10 games, and I felt like he did this against the Hawks when they had these uber athletic teams and everything. Jared Allen definitely played less in those games because he was trying to match up with the other team, where the vast majority of the time he's like, playing to the Cavs' strengths instead of trying to match up with the other team. I felt like he kind of got maybe sucked into that a little bit tonight, cut Jared Allen's minutes a little bit, played some of the bench guys. Strus and LeVert both played 23 minutes, and frankly didn't make a big impact. Like, Niang and Okoro are both up around 20 and honestly weren't making a big impact either. And usually, like, this is such a complimentary team. This is one of the rare games that, like, that nobody kind of stepped up, right? It's nobody, very rare you're gonna have everybody have a phenomenal night on the same night, but they have so many pieces and so many ways to come at you, that usually they have enough firepower to beat the other team, particularly offensively. They're still the best offense in the league, even after tonight's game. I believe the stats are counted now. So yeah. Any other thoughts of this game, or you just want to look forward to Tuesday night and maybe what they could do differently?
There are a couple points, I guess. Like, we did see Kenny's rotation. We saw the core four on the floor together more.
Mhm.
He didn't really offset them as much as he did pretty much most of the games this season.
Yeah.
Like, the core four closed out the first half.
Yeah.
That's something that we haven't seen. So I'm curious on what Kenny's doing there, if he's trying to get these guys in rhythm with each other more, or get these guys more playing time together more to kind of ramp them up. Kind of seems early to do that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What are your takes?
I did think he changed up the rotation a little bit tonight, and you mentioned kind of briefly earlier about, like, they just look almost tired or sluggish for whatever reason. I noticed Mobley at the end of the first quarter, and I think he adjusted his rotation a little bit tonight. And Mobley, like, was just like dog tired at the end with about a minute to go in the first quarter. And I was like, he subbed out, right? He didn't play the whole first quarter. And I had to, like, look up, and sure enough, he did sub out for 3 minutes and came back in. So for whatever reason, he just looked, unless I'm just reading into it, he looks more fatigued than he normally is. And I don't know if that was the rotation thing or what it may be. I mean, for all we know, there's flu going through the world locker room. It seems to be, it's going through my house, and it seems to be going through everywhere right now. But yeah, they just really lethargic. And I don't know. We don't know the reason, but we're at the point now. We're basically halfway through this season, and even after tonight, the Cavs are 33-5. It's time to just start putting our faith in them. Like, until they prove us wrong for several games in a row. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. They had a bad game. They have the least amount of bad games of anyone in the NBA this year, and that's why the record is what it is. Write it off. Get ready get locked in for Tuesday and before the big rematch on Thursday.
Yeah, going into the next game, I had to look it up because I kind of thought this. I was like, I feel like Miles Turner has always been a problem for the Cavs, and has always been a problem for Jared Allen. And I had to look it up. Their matchups, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 19 matches against each other since Jared Allen joined the Cavs.
Okay.
Jared Allen has only had a double-digit positive plus minus once.
Yeah.
So I think Miles Turner might just be Jared Allen's kryptonite.
Yeah, I don't know. It's this is one of the Pacers are a fine team. They're not a top of the league team by any means, but they did make the Eastern Conference Finals this year, and they're a little bit of an anomaly team where they truly play 5 out, and everybody is out shooting. And, like, Mobley can handle anybody on the perimeter. We all know that, but, like, Allen would rather be inside with the big guy and everything. And so maybe it's as simple as that. Turner is stretch 5 as they get, maybe outside of Karl-Anthony Towns. Like, he wants to shoot threes from the top of the arc way more than he wants to, play around the basket. So it could be as simple as that I don't think Miles Turner's a better player than Jared Allen, but he might just be a bad matchup for Jared Allen.
Yeah, and correction, this is career against. So even in his time in Brooklyn, facing Miles Turner is the 19. So in his career, he has 1 double-digit plus minus, and that was in 2021.
Yeah. The only other thing tonight, and I truly don't know if it had made a difference with how bad Cavs were, but The one guy they were without is Ty Jerome, aka TJ Maxx. I will say he is a guy at some times where the Cavs look sluggish has come in and just brought some energy, brought some grit. He's changed momentums in games a lot, and I think they missed him tonight more than I maybe expected them to. I thought, he's a key part to the team, but him missing a game because he's sick, like, shouldn't be the end of the world against a middle of the standings team such as the Pacers. But I do think he could have played a key role tonight, just with his energy and toughness, and maybe he could have come in during one of those lull stretches and made something happen.
Yeah, he definitely is a spark plug for sure. He definitely could have came into this game and flipped it on its head, because there were times there where they kind of mounted a tiny comeback, a 5-6 point run. But if you had TJ Maxx out there, that 6 point run turns into a 12 point run to something that gets guys a little more fired up.
Yeah. So kind of we can kind of transition it there. Like, I guess I'll let you go first, and then I'll throw a couple out there. Like, what specific, anything specific you'd like to see the Cavs do differently, or anything come Tuesday night to hopefully have a better result?
I would like them to get back to seeing what a defense will give them and adjusting their game plan on the fly. They've done such a good job at that. The only 3 instances I have of it are the 2 Hawks games and this one that didn't do that. And I would love to see Donovan Mitchell come out, guns a-blazing, hitting shots, kind of being the dominant player that we've expect out of him.
Yeah, I agree. I want them, and not just with Mobley and Allen, but I want them to make a concentrated effort to get the ball in the paint, whether that's off the drive or getting it into the big guys, and kind of play a little bit more inside out against this Pacers team. Turner's, a decent rim protector, but he's kind of the only guy they got. Thomas Bryant off the bench, but I think there is gaps in this defense for them to kind of aggressively get to the hole. I don't think they did that as much tonight as they could have, and they've done in past games. And the other thing, it's a stat we often overlook, but I simply look at possessions or field goal attempts, right? And the Cavs are usually somebody who take more shots than the other team. That's because they turn teams over. They Jared Allen in particular gets on the offensive rebound. The Pacers got 9 more shots than them tonight. And, in a 15-point game, that was really about 8 to 10 point game for most of the fourth quarter. That could be the difference, especially on a bad shooting night. You're shooting bad is one thing, but then when the other team gets to take 9 more shots than you, just continues to stack the deck against you. So that's kind of what I would look for. I'd look for get the ball inside, and how can they kind of create more opportunities for themselves, especially if they come out and the shots aren't quite falling on Tuesday from the start.
I would agree, and I didn't realize the field goal attempts until you said it, but yeah, that's the game right there. If you're getting outshot, even if they're hitting or not, they're taking more attempts, likely they're gonna get more points and win this game. But I also want to I want them to, if the threes aren't falling, like you said, drive to the hole, get it inside to the paint. Don't become so reliant on the 3 wall. Hopefully, like I said, it's fallen. It's got to be falling better than tonight.
Yeah, I have no problem with them shooting threes. I just want to take the quality threes like they have most of the year. You get into the paint and you kick out for a wide open 3. You swing the ball, you push the pace, and you shoot before the defense set. That's just what I want. I just, again, they're all in a funk tonight, but it just seemed like they didn't get as quality of shots as they normally do. And there's reasons for that. When you say if you ask why did the Pacers get to take 9 more shots? Well, they got 3 more offensive rebounds. They committed 3 less turnovers. They had 11 steals against the Cavs. That's pretty atypical of the Cavs. Usually protect the ball really well.
Very sloppy.
Yeah. So, when you're getting beaten the turnover, you're getting beat on offensive rebounds, you're getting beat on fast break points. That's the other thing. They got no fast break points tonight. And I feel like even more so the last few weeks have been pushing the pace as the season goes on. They seem to be pushing the pace even more. And they couldn't really get into that game tonight for whatever reason. So, I mean, more than anything, I just wanted to play like the Cavs of the first 38 games of the year or 37 games of the year. And I think we'd take care of it. And I definitely want to see him play well because our partner in crime, Tim Daniel, is going to the game on Tuesday night.
Yeah,
I'm jealous. If I didn't have a work trip, I would have drove down and met him. But certainly don't want him to go see. I think it's got to be a good sign. I know he's the game or two he's gone to this year. The big games they played really well. So I expect it to be different on Tuesday.
And the other thing that makes this loss not hurt as bad is that the Celtics and Knicks lost over the weekend. So our gap stays large.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a six game. Were they 6 games clear of the 5.5 after the loss tonight? They're
5.5, and then eight over the Knicks.
Yeah. So obviously, it's not the sky's fault. It's such a weird feeling. The Cavs just never lose. Like
I don't like it. I don't like it when they lose.
It's so weird. I mean, they've had 2 win streaks that combined for 27 games worth of win streaks. Like you get so used to not losing that. Like I honestly was just a little shell shocked watching the game. Like when are they going to turn it on? When are they going to turn it on? Even that game Thursday night, they played terrible, but eventually they turned it on and made enough plays to win the game. And that's how I kind of thought tonight was going to go. And then in that third quarter, the Pacers just kept the foot on the gas and stretching the lead. And then, like you said, in the fourth quarter, they kept cutting it to like 6 or 7, but then not really being able to get over the hump from there. So, again, not the end of the world. Pacers are a good team, and they have some players that are kind of a bad matchup for the Cavs. Hopefully, this is why we rely on the leader in the clubhouse for Coach of the Year, Kenny Atkinson, to figure out how they can attack them a little bit differently and hopefully come out. I'd love to see him come out guns a-blazing, have a 15-point lead at the end of the first quarter, kind of send a message that tonight was not the typical.
Yeah, I think that's the best hope you can have right there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Skylar, any final thoughts before we get out of here? I don't want to talk about this game anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't play like tonight. That's the final thought. Don't play like tonight.
Yeah, hey, things happen. Could be worse. But Cavs, I would say, keep your faith in the Cavs because they've definitely earned it this season, and I think they'll right the ship pretty quickly. So for Skylar Webker, for the missing Tim Daniel, I am Kevin Lynch. Thank you to Blue Wire Media for continuing to allow us to do this. And as always,
go Cavs.
Have a good night, everyone.